Hey, Steve, have you ever received words of wisdom or advice that have served you well?
Yeah, have I? Loads of them.
Yeah, me too.
However, I've got something in mind for this episode. So, in fact, my late father shared some words of wisdom, some advice. It stuck with me probably for at least the last 20 years, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we'll get into more of that in a moment. But first,
Hello, I'm Steve.
and I'm Eric. And together we are two dads with one mission.
Welcome to the 𝗙𝗑𝗔𝗦𝗃 podcast. This is the show for dads, all about fatherhood, faith, and freedom, one conversation at a time.
So, Steve, tell us more about this advice that you received.
Yeah, so I must have been in my late teens. I don't know, maybe even mid-teens, early teens. I was a teenager, and my dad shared these words of wisdom with me. Steve, you'll come across three types of people in the world, and it's one of these overused metaphors. But the three types of people you're going to come across people who make things happen. You're going to come across people who want to make things happen, and you're going to come across people who wonder what the heck's happening. Okay, so those were kind of the three types of people.
Yeah.
And it kind of always resonated with me. But then a little later in life, probably fast forward maybe another decade or so, we have this radio station here in the UK called BBC Radio 2. So the British Broadcasting Company, BBC Radio 2. It's a radio station that I used to listen to early mornings when I was commuting, and it was more kind of a softer early morning type of show. And they would have this segment in there called Pause for Thought. So where they would just pause the day and there would be this inspirational thought given, usually by some sort of maybe a vicar or a rabbi, but not necessarily a religious vocation, just someone who would be giving their thoughts. And this particular show talked about something that then became my social equation. I'm going to share that with you, and obviously our listeners now. And it kind of linked my dad's three types of people to more of an equation. And this particular person, I can't even remember their name or who they were at the time. Just they talked about three types of people, strangely enough, and the fact that there are three types of people. One of them is adders. So there are people who add value. Yep. When you meet them, when they're in your proximity, they're adding value to your life.
Yeah, like they have a word of encouragement or maybe a timely piece of advice, or they just kind of like give you the right kind of energy to make you feel better about yourself, those kinds of things.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the first type of people. So there are adders. Okay. And here's the key: consistency. So the adders are consistently adding value. Okay. And then there are the subtractors. Okay. Yeah. And the subtractors are consistently subtracting value from your day. Okay. Then they're not making an impact and not enriching your life in any way, shape, or form. They're adding no value whatsoever. They're just simply subtracting it.
So there's another phrase that's often used today, and I think you'll recognize it, is the idea of an energy vampire. And I think that's another way of talking about subtractors, where every time that kind of person comes around you or is in your life, in the moment, it is what it is. But then when they leave, you just feel drained. Like you just feel like your day's done. You have no more energy, and I've definitely had people like that in my life.
Eric, they just simply suck the living daylights out of you.
Yep.
Okay, so those are the subtractors. And then there's this third type of person. And again, the social equation, they're the multipliers.
Yep.
So it's the rare breed of people that you surround yourself with that just multiply value in abundance. They're the kind of people that are inspirational. They enrich your lives. Every single thing that comes out of their mouth is words of wisdom, positivity, or some golden type of nugget. They're simply multipliers. And those are the three types of people that my father spoke about but put more into this social equation. And that social equation has stuck with me now for at least the last 2 decades.
Let's
you know, the
talk about
subtractors, multipliers, and adders.
Let's define this idea of social equation, because I have kind of an idea that's floating around my head about, you know, there's this other saying out there that you'll never beat the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Okay.
Definitely.
So for me, because I don't spend a lot of time around actual people, like, you know, you're in the UK and I'm in the United States. We've never physically been in the same room, right? But we spend a lot of time together. And so I consider you one of my people that's my 5 average, right? I've had a business partner. I listen to podcasts, and I consider, you know, when you listen to a guy on a podcast for 3 years, trust me, he is one of your influencers, right?
Definitely.
And so that's the 5 people I look at, and I'm very protective of who those 5 are. And I'm honored to say you're one of the 5. I think that you're absolutely a multiplier as well as an adder. Yeah, I can honestly say you've never subtracted anything from my life. And so for that is, you know, I'm very thankful. You know, my business partner, even though we're not actively growing a business anymore, we still have a business together. We still talk and we still do payroll and all that kind of stuff. And he has absolutely been a multiplier.
Yeah.
You know, and so I can say with certainty that I know and have experienced all 3 types of adders, subtractors, and multipliers. And so, and I'm sure you have too.
Definitely. I mean, Eric, I just want to comment there, but I'm humbled to be on your list of 5 and back at your partner, because you're on my 5 too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So I don't know if we have any more to cover on this, but I know that we want to talk about how, you know, our listeners and even ourselves can really identify when maybe we're being a subtractor or an adder, or, like, you know, I don't ever want to be a subtractor, but I might. Like, sometimes life situations might dictate that you have to kind of, maybe it's, you have to kind of critique somebody or criticize them for their bad behavior or something like that. But then again, I think maybe you're adding to them if they take, you know, because the Bible talks about how a fool will take criticism. Well, no, I'm sorry. There's like 2 kinds of fools: those that will take criticism and learn from it, and then those that will hear it and then just go on about their way, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes criticizing somebody can be the right thing to do, even though it might feel like maybe you're taken away from them at the moment. But if they learn from it, right, then you've actually added or multiplied to their life. But so well, let's back up. Is there anything else we need to cover on?
I was just going to say, look, more on that in a moment. And I've got some real exciting things I want to share based on what you've just said in the last 60 seconds or so. But I want to back right up, because prior to that, you asked this, you know, this social equation. So what is this social equation?
Yeah, kind of like, what is that?
Yeah, it's really simplistic. So my social equation is, look, remove all of the subtractors in your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Simple as. Remove all the flaky people in your life.
Yeah.
You have them surrounding you, and they are sucking the life out of you. They are draining you, and they are adding no value whatsoever. And it's a tough thing to do. I've done it myself. And I'm not saying it's easy, because some of these people can be your closest members of your family and friends. Sure. And as I sit here now, you know, and this is the gospel truth, I've literally cut off members of my family because they were subtracting, and they were basically just sucking the value out of my life, and I had no bandwidth available to do anything else.
Right.
So the equation is really simple. You've got to get rid of all the flaky people in your life, remove all the subtractors. If they're adding no value, they have no part in your inner circle.
The easiest way to identify who those people might be is that if you, when you think about having a conversation with that person, or having to meet with that person or be around them, and you feel kind of resistance in your body or your spirit,
definitely,
you know that they're a subtractor in some way.
Yeah, there's just this energy. You just know it's going to be one of those conversations. Yeah. I mean, conversationally, it's, if you ever have an idea or you want to discuss something, and it doesn't matter how brilliant an idea it is, these are the type of people I call them on Google and you know, and the rating websites. You know, they're always the 5 out of sorry, the 4.5 out of 5s or the 9 out of 10s. It doesn't matter how good it is. They'll always find the one thing that's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's that type of conversation. And it usually conversationally starts with whatever you say, the word but. That's the first word that comes out of their mouth, but.
Yeah.
And
so
then
that's a good identifier type thing.
But, it's going to be something negative, something that drags you down, something that bursts your bubble, something that stops you in your tracks, something that kills your dream dead. And 5 seconds earlier, when you finished it, you were just so excited about whatever idea in a dream it is, and they kill it dead. Those types of people.
Yep. Hey, just another thing. I had a person in my life who every time I said really anything, they're almost, I'm going to say, just to be conservative, 80 to 90% of the time, their immediate response was, well, it's not just that, but it's this. Like whatever I said, they always kind of had this corrective tone to it. They could never just go, oh, that's really interesting, tell me more about that. No, it was always bringing the conversation round back to them and kind of saying, well, you missed something, is kind of what I was left feeling. And that became like an energy vampire to me, where I just like, just don't want to, just tired.
And Eric, and that whole phrase you just said there, it's not just that, it's this, or something similar to that. It's just like saying the word but.
It's absolutely, it's just a more like intellectual way of saying but.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Okay, so that's how we can identify these energy drainers, the subtractors, the flaky people in our lives. But more importantly, the second idea and concept we wanted to share with people, how to become an adder and multiplier.
Yeah.
I mean, the easiest way, really simple. I know it takes practice, but with practice comes perfection. Take the word but out of your vocabulary. Okay, and rather than becoming a no but person, become a yes and person. So if someone shares something with me, rather than being a no but and killing that dream dead, I'll become a yes and. It's like, yeah, and tell me more.
Right.
Yeah, and have you considered this? So become a yes and person.
So I like the acronym of AWE. You've probably heard this. AWE. And what else? And if you just keep that in your mind, AWE, and think about what the word AWE means, right? It means kind of being open to being inspired by something, to be in awe of something. So just remember that with people that you're talking, if you want to add value to them, keep the conversation, keep the focus on them as opposed to grabbing it for yourself all the time.
Definitely. And the way you do that is by basically circling it back around and making it about them. It's like, and tell me more. Or what would happen if we did this? And then they'll go, oh yeah, and that means this. And you get a conversational flow there. It's basically how you become, I guess, another way on how you become an adder and a multiplier is by staying connected and being present.
Kind of goes back to that episode. Kind of goes back to that episode of questions are the answer, right? I mean, we're asking questions of and what else, and all the other things you just said. It's like that's how you add to people's lives.
Yeah, the easiest way of staying connected and being present, like you say, is making it about them rather than you. Okay, so that's how we can obviously become more of an adder and multiplier. There was something on the tip of my tongue that you said something, and I really wanted to just expand on that, but it's gone for a moment, Eric. It'll come back maybe if it's important. It'll come back before we wrap this up.
Well, and we're getting close to that. I mean, I think we've covered it. And look, one thing I wanted to say is we're talking about adding, and we talked about ideas and asking people to expand on their thoughts, and we want to ask our listeners, look, Eric,
I got it. I'm
okay,
sorry to cut you. I got it. I've got to, before I lose it again.
Go ahead.
You used the word criticism
a
few minutes ago. And that's, so how do you become an adder and a multiplier? It's when you turn criticism into feedback. And it's when, rather than criticizing someone, you start to provide them with valuable feedback on how they could make that process slightly better, how they could do it different. It's almost like being a yes and. Have you considered this? So, because criticism in and of itself is not a bad thing.
That might just be in the adding category, where you give somebody an honest critique about something.
Yeah, the word criticism has this like a negative feeling and a connotation. But feedback, on the other hand, feedback is the breakfast of champions.
Right.
If you want to become a champion adder and a multiplier, give feedback for breakfast.
Absolutely. Okay, good.
Sorry to cut across you, Eric. It came back to me.
All I would say is if our listeners have any ideas or things they want to add and have us talk about, then we want to encourage that. So, all right, I say let's put a bow tie on this. What are we talking about in our next episode, Steve?
So our next episode is you'll never know how far a change will go.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to share with you another story, but that's for another time.
All right, I'm looking forward to that. All right, and look, if you want to reach out to us, if you want to find out more about us, just simply go to allieddads.com, and it's a simple website, but it's got all of our contact info there. Reach out to us, give us a suggestion, tell us how we're doing. If you want some of the some of the free information we provide, you can reach out to us there. So that's it. What do people need to do, Steve?
Well, listen, you'll find us on your favorite streaming channels. When you find us, just hit those subscribe and bell buttons, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
See you soon.